The Philadelphia 76ers are in another tough postseason situation as Joel Embiid is compromised with another injury. Not only did he suffer a concussion, but he also suffered an orbital injury against the Toronto Raptors in Game 6. And it makes me truly wonder and just rehash my opinions that I've said numerous times about Joel Embiid, and that is the big problem with him being your best player on any team that has championship goals. And it's the problem that the Sixers have had to face essentially every single year of his career, and it's going to affect them probably going forward for the rest of his career at this point. And that is that Joel Embiid is just not reliable come postseason time due to his injuries. And because of that fact, it really does change how I look at Joel Embiid as a franchise player and if he's a real superstar in this NBA. But before we get started, I would like to give a shout out to the sponsor of this video, Prize Picks. Prize Picks is one of my go-to apps, I have to say. It's a very easy way to earn money if you understand the game of basketball. Let me just show you how it's done. So right here, you got points, rebounds, assists, all of these players here. I could pick Giannis, Tatum, Drew for points, and honestly, I ain't gonna pick none of them because all these guys, they could easily score under this tonight. Giannis, let's be real, great player, but the Celtics did play good defense on him, though he did smoke some open layups. Tatum, it's going to be hard for him to get in the paint. And then Drew Holiday, man, that dude is too inconsistent for me. I'm sorry, I love you, Drew. If it's defense, I can bank on you, but offensively, you just going to have to show me, no cap. But let's look at points, rebounds, and assists. I'm going to take Giannis because, you know, he's a triple-double threat. He proved that last game. Then you look at three-pointers made. I mean, Grayson Allen is a zone killer, so I got to take his over, just like I took Giannis's. And Steph Curry, actually, no. I'm not going to go with Steph because Steph, he do be having some rough nights, so let's go with the other zone killer for the Bucks, Pat Connaughton. I'm expecting him and Grayson Allen to have a great game, and just like that, if all three of them strike their overs, I'm gonna get $100 just by putting $20 down. It's that simple. And if you're not convinced, if you use my promo code MUSTARD, all of my users will receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100. So check out Prize Pick. The link is down below in the description box below. Now let's get back to the rest of this video. Now, before people start getting on me in the comment section saying, how could you even question Joel Embiid's superstar status? He just had back-to-back years finishing top 3 in MVP voting, and I can understand that argument. Don't get me wrong, Joel Embiid has superstar talent, and that's undeniable. I believe that 100%. But when it comes to being a superstar, you have to have either superstar results along with the talent, or also have to have availability. And Joel Embiid does not have either of those things. Whether it comes to him underperforming in the playoffs, which is a subject for another discussion, or him being injured consistently, those two things combined honestly are the biggest reasons why he has not gotten further in the playoffs. I mean, just go back to the beginning of Joel Embiid's career in the NBA. He didn't even play his first 2 seasons due to an injury he sustained in college, which was a big reason why people were saying, man, this guy is a bust. How can he be on Twitter more than he is on the court due to injuries? And it wasn't just one injury, he like re-aggravated it and had to miss the second season of his career. Then he finally touches the NBA court in his rookie season, and he plays limited minutes, not playing back-to-backs, so they're obviously being very cautious about this injury. And despite an amazing rookie campaign, averaging over 20 points a game along with 8 rebounds on limited minutes, by the way, which is just crazy to think about, he still finds a way to get injured with the meniscus tear. Now granted, the Sixers were not looking to make the playoffs that year, but if there was one thing you didn't want to see with Joel Embiid if you're in the front office of the 76ers, it's an injury that ends Joel Embiid's season. So now we're already at year 1 officially, I should say, because they don't really count your first 2 years if you don't play, but we're already there, and he has suffered 3 major injuries that have caused him to only play less than 40 games in total. That means out of 246 possible games, Joel Embiid has only played 31 out of his first 3 seasons. If you want the percentage, that's less than 13% of possible games played that Joel Embiid had actually played. Then you look at the next season for Joel Embiid, and still playing on some limited minutes here or there. He only averaged 30 minutes a game, but still put up crazy numbers of 23 and 11 along with 3 assists and nearly 2 blocks on 48% shooting from the field. Really great season from Embiid, if I'm being honest with you. And just as he was on the verge of playing an entire season without suffering a major injury, he goes down with an orbital injury that ends his regular season prematurely. Now obviously, I don't think they were going to win the championship that year. I mean, Ben Simmons was on the team. He had that 1-point game against the Celtics. Remember that shit? But yet, this is just another season of Joel Embiid's career where it's ended prematurely, and it has even affected the team come postseason time. Then you look at the 2019 year where he was healthy for a majority of the regular season. I gotta give him that. But in the playoffs, he was suffering with diarrhea, bubble guts, and it was clearly affecting him, especially against the Toronto Raptors, as he had an Al Horford-like box score of 18 points and 9 rebounds, shooting 37% from the field, 35% from 3, and 84% at the free throw line. Just a really poor series from Joel Embiid. Obviously, the defense from his father, Marc Gasol, played a big factor into it, but when you consider the fact that he was also sick, I believe that was just as much of a factor in my personal opinion. Then you look at the 2020 season, and I have to admit that was a really rough playoffs for Joel Embiid, because sure, they had Tobias Harris and he was a little bit of a tough fit in the regular season, along with the horrendous Al Horford and Josh Richardson pickups, but they weren't even allowed to prove that they were bad pickups come postseason time because there was no Ben Simmons. And yes, Embiid averaged 30 and 12, but they still lost, being swept in the bubble by the Boston Celtics. I gotta say, this is the one year I really feel bad for Embiid, because I truly believe if Ben Simmons was there, a lot of things could have gone different for them, but hey, that's life, right? And life can be unfair, which brings us to last season for Joel Embiid, where he was playing throughout the majority of the playoffs on a torn meniscus he suffered in the first round against the Washington Wizards. Now, despite him being on a partially torn meniscus, he was still able to average 30 and 13 on 47% shooting from the field, but some of them turnovers, my goodness, some of them turnovers, nearly averaging 5 turnovers a game, which was capped off in Game 7 as he committed 8 turnovers. Embiid also had a couple of games in halves that he played pretty bad. Just look at Game 4, he only shot 4 of 20 from the field, which is 20%. That's just really horrible. I mean, 4 of 20 is so bad that I don't care who is guarding you, that's completely unacceptable. But it just confirms that Joel Embiid is not a reliable player come postseason time, not just because he may underachieve with his play, but because of his health. Because just look at where the Sixers are now. Sure, James Harden is not the James Harden he used to be, and trust me, you're gonna get a video about that when they flame out against the Heat, but Joel Embiid is nowhere to be found yet again, and this is a consistent theme in Joel Embiid's career. Injuries after a great regular season overall, and whether he comes back or not, that injury is going to affect him in the postseason. I mean, the first round just ended and he had 3 injuries in total. The thumb injury with the ligament tear, he had a concussion, and an orbital injury. There truly isn't an injury that his body doesn't like, and I'm not trying to be mean towards Joel Embiid, because I understand some people's bodies are just built differently. Some guys are Iron Men like LeBron James, and some guys are injury prone like Blake Griffin, and Joel Embiid obviously falls into the latter of that category, because Joel Embiid has been injury prone his entire career going back to college. And that's why when I made my Joel Embiid versus Nikola Jokic video and people were like, oh, Embiid hasn't even been hurt this year, what are you talking about injuries for? Well, just look at the playoffs right now. This is exactly why I brought it up, because Joel Embiid is just not durable enough to be my #1 guy, and the best ability is always going to be availability. And whether you think Embiid is the better talent between him and Nikola Jokic, he is not more durable than Nikola Jokic. When the season starts, I know I'm going to get Jokic for at least 70 plus games. I cannot say that about Joel Embiid, because aside from the injuries affecting him in the playoffs, he also gets hurt in the regular season as well, missing at least 20 games every year essentially. I mean, think about it. He would actually be an MVP right now, going for his 2nd straight, if he did not miss a good chunk of the season last year. And like I said earlier, when it comes to being a superstar, it ain't just about the talent. You gotta have the availability and the results. And he doesn't have the results, primarily due to him not having the availability. So how can I say he's better than guys like a Jokic or a Giannis? Guys that not only have better results, but primarily have those results in comparison to Embiid, just due to the fact that they're more healthy than him. And I love Joel Embiid. I think he's one of the 10 best players in the NBA and a superstar talent in this league. And if I'm the Sixers, I am desperately hoping James Harden goes back to the Houston Harden of old, because you need another guy just as good, if not just very close to Joel Embiid's level, in order for them to win a championship. Because I am beyond the point of Joel Embiid being the clear #1 option to win a championship. Because he's a great player, don't get me wrong, but it's very obvious he can't be really the #1 guy. If he is, you need a guy just as good next to him. And James Harden would be perfect, but unfortunately he's just just not getting the job done, and that's a topic for another discussion. I'm hoping it's gonna happen sooner rather than later so I can drop that vid. So the 76ers have a true problem on their hands with Joel Embiid because I don't know how long he's gonna be playing at this level with all the injuries on his body. Embiid is closer to 30 than he is to 25 at this stage in his career, and with the injuries and wear and tear on his body at this point, you can't have a season go to waste at any point in his career. You need to take advantage of every single opportunity presented in front of you to surround him with talent. And it's not like the Sixers are this horrible organization like the Pistons or something. They're not that bad, but it is very clear from the playoffs that I've seen so far and throughout the regular season, especially post James Harden trade, that they are not as close to a championship contender as many people thought they were. You guys let me know your opinions down below. Do you believe Joel Embiid is a superstar in the NBA? Why or why not? Also, let me know what you think about the 76ers situation with Joel Embiid as their best player. James Harden looked like he's flopping, and just your overall thoughts on this video. Don't forget to drop a like, subscribe to the channel, and press that bell for post notifications. This is your boy Young Mustard signing out. Y'all stay safe and have a blessed day. Peace.